Welcome to our Getting Started with Homeschooling series. We are on session number 6, and we are going to be discussing today homeschool curriculum. So many parents ask about curriculum. And one thing we want to say is it tends to be one of the first things that parents ask about. But
Mhm.
honestly, it's one of the bottom things. We have to address a lot of other things before we dive into curriculum. So go back and listen to the other sessions where we really look into, what are the homeschool laws, being a parent first, and how to balance parenting with homeschooling, teaching and learning styles, who and why and when we should start. Those are all kind of the foundational things before we get to
Right.
curriculum. And we really want to emphasize that because I feel like curriculum is probably, and Audrey, you might be able to confirm this. It seems to be one of the first things that parents ask when they've decided to
Yes.
curriculum. And honestly, it should be kind of at the bottom of the list. I mean, obviously, it's very, very
Yeah.
important, but it kind of comes after you've laid a foundation. So go back and
Right.
listen to the other sessions, get your homeschool foundation laid, and then come back and listen to this where we're going to dive into the deep question of homeschool curriculum. What do I use? What should I use? What's out there? What's the differences? And today, Audra
Mhm.
and I are going to really kind of clarify a lot of that with you. So,
Yes.
Audra, let's just dive in. Tell us about homeschool
Okay.
curriculum.
Okay. So this is my favorite topic. So, but
Yeah,
like you said, the foundation has to be laid,
right.
including what you want your days to look like, what's
Yes.
realistic for your days, because
Yep.
some curriculum is going to take more of your day than other curriculum.
Correct. Correct.
So two basic curriculum structures you're going to bump into is what's called mastery based and spiral based.
Okay.
Mastery based curriculum tends to cover a topic one thing at a time, and it covers it thoroughly until your kids can do it in their sleep.
Okay.
And they don't add new concepts. They might review concepts as they go, but they don't add new concepts until the original concept has been mastered.
Okay.
Okay. The other style is called spiral based. So you're going to get a concept here, you're going to work on it, you're going to learn it, and then you're going to put in another new concept, and then you're going to work on the two concepts, and then you're going to add a third new idea, and you're going
Hmm.
to, so it's spirals, and you
Right.
master as you go.
Right. You
Um,
revisit the same thing throughout.
right. And the mastery base, we'll go back and visit it, but it's
Right.
more review and
Correct.
less finesse or, developing continuity and comfort with the new
Right.
concepts.
Gotcha.
So that you're going to find that in various learning curriculum types. Just be aware there is a difference. And a lot of the criticism you'll hear from one curriculum to the other has to do with whether they're mastery based or spiral based, because a mastery based curriculum may not cover step C, until third grade, let's say. But
Right.
spiral based will have covered that in second grade, but it hasn't covered it as thoroughly. But at the
Right.
end of an academic year, at the end of their academic life, they will have all covered the exact same material.
Right. Right. Very good. So,
So,
so one reason this is important, because you might be, well, who cares? But one reason is I feel like if you're going to be switching curriculums, because as
mhm,
homeschool moms, we switch it up. We realize
yeah,
one's working, one's not. You do need to keep that in mind that if you have been with a mastery based and you're going into a spiral or vice versa, there could be some holes that you need to
right,
be aware of and need to go back and teach your kids on your own. So just
exactly,
this is kind of important to think if you end up switching from one curriculum to another.
right,
It's
yeah,
doable, but just
exactly,
be aware of that so that there
right.
are not holes in the end.
Yes,
Wonderful.
exactly. And
Okay.
it's not a negative to the curriculum you're switching to or from. It's just that's the
Right.
reality of the layout, the format.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
just be aware. Okay. So how are a lot of curriculums organized? What's some, like, explain that a little bit.
Okay. So a lot of curriculum is going to have a grade number on it: first grade, second grade, fifth grade,
Okay.
high
Right.
school.
Right.
Others are going to be based on levels. So it'll be level
Okay.
1, level 2, level 3.
And those don't
And
necessarily correspond with grade, do they?
no, they
Okay.
don't.
Okay.
They don't. And so if you're looking for curriculum and okay, my kid was in third grade last year, they're going into fourth grade this year, a grade organized curriculum is going to be easy. You're just going to go pick a
Right.
fourth grade curriculum.
Right.
Grade level based curriculum is really designed to kind of be a span between grades and or a grade. So one of the best ways to figure out your child's level is most of those providers provide a placement test.
Okay.
And you
Okay.
just have your kid do a placement test. They'll tell you, oh, your kid is in level 3.
Gotcha.
Doesn't really matter what their age is. Doesn't matter what their grade is. They're a level 3 because that's where they tested at.
Okay.
And a lot of providers do that because, as you will learn as you homeschool, your kids are going to excel in certain subjects, but struggle in others. And there's this kind of stigma that can develop in a kid's mind. Well, I'm in 5th grade, but why am I doing 4th grade math?
Right.
Well, some curriculum providers have decided, well, let's just cut it out the grades and work where they're at their level. And then the kids don't become discouraged by being behind, because really you're not behind.
You're not behind. Right. So again, this is important because we do not have to, our 5th grader does not have to be in 5th grade math, language, across the board. They don't. We have the freedom to teach our kids where they are. So just pay attention to grades. One problem parents can get in is that they think if they're doing a leveled curriculum, they think that number 2 means 2nd grade. Right. And so that's why we're telling you that is just be aware of what does that 2 mean? Does that mean 2nd grade or does that mean level 2, which could be 1st, 4th, whatever grade? So, but don't let these numbers tell you where your kid is. Find out where your kid is and then place them. Do not just assume because your kid was in 5th grade in public school that that's where they need to be. So these placement tests are really important. And also if they zoom through a grade level, let them. And then if they need to slow down, let them. Again, curriculum, you can take curriculum at your child's pace as we homeschool. So okay, that's how we're organizing these as levels and grades. But now let's get into what a lot of people really want to know is the curriculum approach or method. This is something that's really important before you actually decide is what kind of approach, what kind of method is going to work for your kids, your family, your schedule. So we share a little bit about that with us.
So first people ask, okay, I've got all these curriculum types. What approach or method are these using? And what you're going to find is in the description of the curriculum you're using, they're going to describe them a certain way. Some will call themselves, well, this is a Charlotte Mason approach. Right. And we'll go into what that looks like. Or this is a traditional approach, or this is a classical approach. So the curriculum providers themselves will define their curriculum with these names and use these terms. So look for them as you're looking at curriculum, look for this language, and we'll cover each one of those more thoroughly. But that's the easiest way to find it. So go to the curriculum provider and see how they describe themselves.
Okay.
So let's just jump right into our first
what are these?
Overview, our first curriculum approach. Okay. It's called traditional. So our first one is traditional. Okay. And traditional typically is a textbook heavy form of homeschool curriculum. So these are going to have, there's a distinct book for each subject area. So there will be a history book, there'll be a science book, there'll be a math book. They reflect kind of what we remember going through in public schools. Okay. Every class had a different book and you moved at a different pace through each one. Okay. Or you covered XYZ lessons. So these are awesome in terms of knowing exactly where you're at any given time. The subjects are very distinct from each other, so they're easy to teach, they're easy to keep organized, they're easy to grade because the topics are covered separately. Right. But they can be dry. Yes. And they can take a lot of time. Right.
They don't get a lot of opportunity for freedom and fudging. They're pretty structured.
Yeah.
Which a lot of people like. It works for a lot of families.
Yes, it works. And, again, don't let that, if that fits your life and it fits your children and you, don't be turned off by it just because it's more structured.
Yeah. And I guess we should have prefaced all of this to say, none of these are better than the other. None are right. None are wrong. I mean, sometimes in the homeschool community, you can hear, well, we do this and you do that. That's not how it works. These are all great options. They all work. It's just a matter of what's going to work best for your family.
Right.
So, okay. So what are some examples? Yeah.
Right. Bob Jones University, Becca Books, Christian Liberty Press, Christian Light, Rod and Staff, Alpha Omega, Master Books. Right. And what you're going to find is interesting is that you're going to have some curriculum providers, Master Books, for example, who will fall under a number of these different headings because depending on the grade level and subject, we're going to need to they can kind of tweak to either direction depending on how you
Right.
use the material or the particular topic.
And those names that you just read, many of those people hear and go, homeschool. Those are kind of your tried and true, have been around forever homeschool curriculums. So
Right.
those are pretty familiar with people. But now tell us about the classical approach. So that was the traditional. And now there's the classical approach that you'll hear a lot. These are buzzwords. These are words. These are things you're going to hear a lot as you start to homeschool. So we're just trying to help you identify. So what exactly is the classical model of homeschooling?
Okay. So the classical model actually pulls models of learning from the Middle Ages, and they have their roots in Greek and Roman civilization. So this goes back a long ways. And so you're going to find their curriculum is replete with language and logic and grammar and rhetoric. They are going to focus on ideas in general. If you think about Greek philosophers, they're going to concentrate on learning forms and learning forms that form the inner person. Okay. So they focus on the inward brain and heart connection of of your student. Now, I know a lot of families who love this approach. Because they teach students to think critically, they learn independently, they present their own ideas, they assimilate a lot of knowledge, but they can be very overwhelming and dry, and they're very time consuming. Because it's a lot of drilling, it's a lot of memory work, it's a lot of drill, it's a lot of brain work. I mean, honestly, it can be exhausting mentally as much as it is physically with your day. But they group your education into what is called the trivium, which is grammar, logic, and rhetoric. And that's just how they structure their curriculum in a level. That's basically a level or an age group.
Yeah. Okay. So what are some examples of the classical approach?
Veritas Press, Critical Thinking Company, Tapestry of Grace is kind of structured this way. Cornerstone, Classical Conversations, which there's a lot of classical conversation homeschoolers in the Treasure Valley, and actual co-ops that use the classical approach. So you're going to see that
classical conversations is probably going to be you're one of the most recognized names of that. So so classical is very classical. Traditional is very traditional. We're going to get into some that are a little, not quite as I wouldn't say rigid, but very structured in, they do kind of fit into that classical box. That doesn't mean you can't fudge it a little bit to work for you, but they do fit into kind of those boxes. So another one that a lot of people are seeing and are fun is the unit studies model of homeschooling. So tell us a little bit about the unit studies. I think people are pretty familiar with this, but dive into it a little bit.
Okay. Unit studies, you typically buy a unit from a provider, and it's pretty much a pre-planned open and go. And you may have to do a little assembly of materials in order to teach it, but it's pretty much set up to just start teaching from it. But what they do, it takes a topic and it connects math to that topic. It connects language to the topic. It connects science to a particular topic. So it's very topic centric. And this topic could be a character trait. It could be diligence. And they're going to learn about a person from history who showed diligence. You're going to learn maybe scientific experiments that require diligence, or maybe long-term experiments that require more. There's a lot of information that's integrated across subject areas, but that still fall under the heading of this primary topic. Your days on those, some days will be super intense and some days will be less intense. The disadvantage to a unit study is because you've got so much information falling under this topic heading, it can feel very loosey-goosey, a little bit haphazard. It's kind of hard to quantify progress. I mean, how do you grade math or history or science under a heading about diligence? It's a little hard to do that. So that one though is again for maybe you can do that on an ongoing basis. Konos is the most popular, most recognized name in unit study formats. 5 in a Row does this. History of Grace does this. But it fits a lot of families because you're
It
really
does.
able to hone in on a particular topic and see how it applies across the spectrum
Right. So
of
this is
knowledge.
good for if you see that a kid, I mean, and one thing, a benefit of homeschool is that we can really teach to their interests. So if you see that a kid is very interested in, let's say, I don't know, sharks or insects or something of the
Mm,
sort, um, and you might lose them in other settings of school, but if you can do an integrated unit, or a unit study also called, and you can integrate that topic that they already love, that they're already curious with, and you can bring it into, okay, the history of shark, history, science, language, read books on it, math. If you can integrate it into all things, you're going to capture that child's attention.
right.
It is going to draw them in. So that is one of the benefits for this
For
is for a
sure. For
kid.
sure.
Yeah. The
And
other
I know
thing
some.
about, so sorry, the other thing about this is, um, you can do these on your own. There is so much
Yes.
information just out there on the internet that you can pick a topic and integrate it into. I mean, unit studies are left and right free out there as well, and you can
Yeah.
pick and
Yeah.
choose. So, unit studies can also be worked in to other curriculums, other,
Yeah.
different styles of education. It's really fun. An example is in the summer, just do unit studies in the summer, maybe take your breaks and do
Right.
a unit study. So it can intertwine with other
Hmm.
curriculums. It can be standalone, but it also can work with others.
Yeah.
So
It's super
it's a pretty
flexible.
open, yeah, very flexible. That's the word.
Yeah.
So okay, there's a big one that everybody hears, that everybody knows, but I don't think a lot of people understand what it is. And this is Charlotte Mason. So dive into, I just hear this woman's name, the Charlotte Mason. Tell us a little about who she was, what this form of education is, and pros and cons, strengths and weaknesses of it.
So yeah, Charlotte Mason, it gets bandied about all the time. And
Mhm.
honestly, she wrote voluminous amounts of work on her teaching method. And so it's going to be really hard to kind of narrow it down into a
Right,
nutshell. But
right.
um her view is that we need to treat our children as whole people,
Mhm.
and that learning doesn't happen in a box because
Right,
whole can exist inside a structured box.
right.
And so she tends to shy away from textbooks. She's a big proponent of what she calls strewing. So you take, it's kind of a directed learning. So you take your children out, let's say, into nature, and you kind of guide them down the path and provide opportunities for them to learn about, oh, what's that? Oh, that's a ladybug. Oh, where's what is a ladybug? What does a ladybug do? How do so it's the teacher directs but allows the child to discover as a part of that process. So it's very much it's also very sense oriented, so that tactile, auditory, visual, it really focuses on incorporating all those learning modalities. It has a big, heavy focus on learning self-discipline and learning good habits. So there's a lot of curriculum really focuses on incorporating that into our kids' life. Um, she relies heavily on narration. So those kids that take in information but have a hard time putting it on paper, she does a lot of oral narration as a way to affirm that the children have learned the
Okay.
information that they need to know. Really heavily using living books. Living books are books that are not textbooks, that are written well, that cover topics of moral value. Um, so again, this is a very it's very fluid and it's
Right,
very
right,
flexible, and you're going to find a lot of curriculum providers have a Charlotte Mason flavor. So
right.
they're going to incorporate some of her ideas into maybe a more structured layout. Um, but this is going to feel a little haphazard. If you're doing all Charlotte Mason, it's going to feel a little loosey goosey again. It's going to be hard to quantify that progress again because it's just this whole, but this is kind of a life learning is her
Right.
approach.
Yeah, it feels more like a natural learning, not so
Mhm.
structured, but just I've heard people describe it more as just a natural learning, a natural
Right.
process to learning as opposed to a
Yeah.
structured process.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
what are some
And
examples of this?
um, doorposts, Progeny Press, Learnables, Sunlight, Masterbooks, Heart of Dakota, My Father's World, all have kind of Charlotte Mason leanings and or are hardcore Charlotte Mason.
Okay.
And again, you may within one particular curriculum find, let's say their language arts is very Charlotte Mason, but their science is a little bit more textbook oriented. So even within providers, you're going to find different subject areas have certain leanings.
Okay, gotcha. That makes sense. Okay, so unschooling. What is unschooling?
Okay, so unschooling is like the biggest, like, I'm going to unschool my children and then we don't do anything.
Right,
That's
right.
not what unschooling really is.
Okay.
So, unschooling is, yes, it allows the child to and how, and even if they learn anything, um, is what it's called, but really what it is more of is that in practice, it tends to emphasize just the consideration of our child's interests. So if you have a kiddo who is fascinated with sharks, right there, we already used that example, you are going to then exploit or take advantage of that fascination, and you're going to direct them and guide them and provide resources and learn with them on that particular topic and other kind of peripheral topics. So it's also kind of, unschooling can be called delight directed
Okay.
learning. So again, the kids provide a lot of input, but it takes a very attentive parent who's willing to put in some work when they see that light bulb go off or that, oh, excited look on their kids' face, to then pull in the resources that they need in order to turn that into an educational opportunity.
Right. Okay, that makes sense.
And
Okay.
so this doesn't have any set curriculum.
No,
There
it
is
just
no
kinda
curriculum
happens.
provider. Yeah,
Right.
it just kind of happens. Yeah.
Okay. Independent learning.
Okay, so independent learning is a format that allows pretty much, mom says or dad says, here's your material. Here's the material I want you to cover on any day. Have at it.
Okay.
So it allows the student to learn with very little parental direct interaction regarding the individual lessons. However, that doesn't mean you just dump that in their lap and walk away.
Right.
You still, you are still making sure that the child is taking in the
Right.
information. You are administering tests to make sure they're retaining it and
You're a bit of a
understanding it.
facilitator as opposed to an
Right.
instructor, I would say.
Right. Yes.
So,
Yes.
and again, you hopefully can see why it's important to know our children's learning styles because
Hmm.
a social, what is she? Social Sally, Social Sue?
Sociable Sue. Yeah.
Sociable Sue, this isn't going to work with her as well because
Mm-mm.
she's not going to just want to be, but it is for who's Carl?
Competent Carl
Capable, a
would
competent
suck
Carl
this
would
up.
love this. So,
Yeah.
again, that's why we lay the foundation of understanding your kids' learning styles before you choose curriculum.
Hmm.
But like Audra said, if you already have a curriculum, you can fudge these and tweak these to work for any
Yes.
learning style, but you're
Yes.
going to have to do that.
Yep.
Um, so accelerated Christian education is an example of that.
Right. Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So take us into umbrella learning. What is the umbrella model?
Okay. So an umbrella model is where you basically do school under the auspices of an established school. So a perfect example is Abeka Academy or Bob Jones University.
Gotcha.
Abeka Academy will provide all your materials. It will provide you either live stream or I'm streaming or disc versions of classes that you will let your kids watch. They'll do the material. You take their material, you put it in an envelope, and you
Mhm.
send it to Abeka, and they grade and keep track of everything for you. And then at the end of every quarter or semester, you get a report card for your child.
Okay.
And so this is again it's very simple. You still have to monitor and make sure they're doing their job, but other than that, a lot of the hands-on part of the teaching is done with the instructors. And
Right.
usually places like this, the instructors are certified teachers. Not that that's again a
Right.
prerequisite for being a good teacher, but they're high quality teachers who've been teaching for years, teaching to your kid and a classroom.
Right.
So yeah.
Okay. So a lot of times parents, when they're first pulling their kids out of public school, they kind of default to this umbrella because it gives you
Hmm.
kind of a security and a guidance. And then from there, And this isn't always the case, but
Right.
I've seen that often gives people almost the security to bring their kids home.
Right.
Very rarely, I mean, it happens, but not quite as often do people stick under these umbrellas. Once they get a little bit of taste of that freedom, or they start to
Right.
find other styles that they like or that would fit better with their family, that's when then you see them dive into something like what we're going to talk about next, which is the eclectic style. Um,
Right.
then that's kind of when you get your feet a little bit stable and okay, I know the confidence that we
Mhm.
should already have is I know I can do this. And so tell us about this eclectic style of homeschooling.
Okay, so eclectic is what I would like consider myself because
My,
I kind of did
my energy.
exactly what you talked about. I started
Yep.
off with a Becca and then I kind of have spread my wings a little bit.
Right.
Eclectic is where you pick and choose from these different curriculum providers and different educational philosophies.
Right.
So again, I might choose a traditional approach for history because it's an open and go and it just fits our life better, but choose a Charlotte Mason approach for our language arts and science.
Right.
Um, so what you do is you basically are taking what works best for your family and your family's learning style, lifestyles, and brings that in, and you incorporate all of those different elements together to
Right.
make
Right.
basically a customized school experience for your
Right.
kids.
Yeah, and the benefit of that is not all kids learn the same as we discussed
Hmm.
in previous sessions. So one language arts might work for one of my children, but not the other. And so
Right.
as I do this eclectic, I can pull in what works for each kid. We can maybe do science all together and then split up math or so
Right.
eclectic allows for a little bit more personalized education
Yes.
experience,
Yes, exactly,
customized.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah,
All right, so let's dive into extracurricular or co-ops. What and I want to hit a little bit. Co-ops are all very different. So when you hear the word
yes.
co-op, you need to find out, and Otter's gonna talk about this. You need to find out what does that mean to the co-op leader? Like what exactly is this co-op?
So a co-op, let's go back to the one that we've already looked at, the classical conversations co-op.
Right.
That co-op is going to be very structured. It's going
Mhm.
to use the classical approach. A lot of times you will cover material within the co-op setting, which may happen 1 day a week, 2 days a week, 3 days a week. And then you're going to take home material and you're going to cover other material, but you're also going to cover homework type
Right.
material. And it's all integrated. What you do at home and what you do at co-op all go hand in hand.
Right. And that's a more
Uh,
traditional view of what is a co-op.
right.
Okay.
Now, there are other co-ops that are not, they still have classes and there's still curriculum used, but it's used exclusively within that co-op setting.
Right.
So
Okay.
your kids may study missionaries using a particular curriculum at your co-op, but there's not homework brought home from it. There's
Okay.
not, you aren't expected to follow through with anything from the co-op per se.
So you do
And
your
a lot,
independent learning and teaching at
mhm,
home, and then you go to co-op, and that's an unrelated, learning
right.
classes that go on there. Okay.
And you can pick and choose. And a lot of times those types of co-ops will offer a huge variety of classes. So you'll find
Right.
extracurricular type activities, you'll find arts, a lot of social studies. You might find some math and more technical stuff. But you pick and choose, and that's a good opportunity when, oh gosh, we're struggling with language right now.
Right.
Maybe your co-op will offer that class and it gives your kids
Right.
a different voice in their ear and a different approach that will
Right.
aid them in the process.
And it also breaks up the year a little bit. And with
Hmm.
co-ops, often a mom is required to teach a class or help in some way, not always, but often. So if you're looking for a co-op or you're interested, if you head over to homeschoolidaho.org, you'll find a list there of
Hmm.
not every, but those co-ops that
A
have
lot of them.
actually been put on our website. A lot of co-ops in your area. You can search by area and find out what co-ops are available. There's also some call co-ops and maybe they shouldn't. I run one here and we call ourselves a co-op, but I would say we're more of a support group or just a field
Right.
trip group. And those co-ops do more just field trips, extracurricular activities, play
Right.
dates, mom's nights out, So again, you need to decide what works best for your family in the season
Right.
of life that you're in. Um, and then pick a group according. But, co-op is not a must have. It is not something that
Right.
you have to do to homeschool, but it's an option out there.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a good choice. It's a good
Okay,
option.
so now that we've heard about all the different curriculums that are out there, how how in the world do I choose? Like now that I kind of maybe some of these have piqued someone's interest.
Mhm.
Okay, so where do I buy them? How do I find out about them? Help.
So yes, there's a lot out there. And
Mhm.
I'm going to say that again, going back to Kathy Duffy's 102 top picks for homeschool curriculum. This is a great resource because it's going to help you go through your learning styles and then find what curriculum providers probably best fit your kids' learning styles.
Okay.
So that's a great resource. But in that context, also remember curriculum providers some will provide only printed material. So you
Mhm.
actually have to get onto their website or call them and order your books. And you'll have books. Some of them are textbooks that can be reusable from one grade to, one child to the next. You just stick it on your shelf in between times. Others the printable material is your kids write in it. So at the end of the school year, you end up throwing it all out or filing it, and you have to buy it again for the next kid.
Right. Or you
But
can get the text and pass the text down and just replace the workbook. So,
the workbooks, yeah,
each company is different. You just
is a
have to
little
find out.
different.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then a lot of curriculums now offer actually digital options where you can buy print material, or you can, for a slightly reduced rate, you can buy digital and print it yourself.
Okay.
And then you have it available. You're allowed to continue to print it for anybody within your family, is usually what the license allows, is for
Okay.
family members only. There's you'll hear the term box curriculum.
Right.
And that is basically everything you need from whatever provider assembled into one package for you. So Sunlight is one of those that does that. They pull
Right.
from multiple publishers. They put it together in a level 3 or 3rd grade or whatever, however they sort their levels out into one box. They ship the whole box to you, and you have everything you need.
Everything
So
you
that's
need.
right.
Yep.
That's what the term box curriculum
Right.
means.
And those box curriculums usually come with a big teacher's manual that will
Yeah.
also tell you everything you need to do as the teacher.
Yeah. Yeah. Because you're
Okay.
going to be dealing with a lot of different resources, and it can be
Yeah.
overwhelming. But
And these can
they
tend to
usually
be a
have them
little
spelled
bit
out.
more expensive.
Yes.
They can be, but everything, time is money. So everything comes to you. They have the lesson plans ready to go. They have directions. Yep. Some of them even tell you what to say for each lesson.
Yeah, which is awesome if you're just getting
Right.
started.
If you're
like,
just getting started. And many of them actually have kind of like homeschool mentors that company hires that can walk you through things and help you through things.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of benefits to the box curriculum. Also, many people, after a few years of doing it, feel stifled by it and they want out. So again, there's no right or wrong. These are all just options.
Right.
Okay.
And then some parents choose just to, okay, I like Bob Jones. Everything I use is from Bob Jones.
Right.
And what's nice with that is if you stick to one publisher, once you know their material, you know their material. So teaching it from one subject to the next becomes easier, from one year to the next becomes easier. And by doing it from one publisher, and assembling the parts or the subjects yourself, you do save some money. And they require a little bit of prep, but once you're familiar with how they lay their stuff out, it's a breeze after that. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
And then if you're kind of the eclectic curriculum personality, you're going to be jumping from one publisher to another, to another, to another. So it's time intensive up front, but because you can pick and choose both based on style, but also price point, you can cut your costs quite a bit with that. But it is a lot more upfront work to get that assembled.
Yes. Yeah. And again, Audra and I both said we're both kind of like that. We love it, but that overwhelms a lot of people. So, as Audra said in another session, don't look around at what all the other moms are doing and feel like you need to do that. Do what's best for you and give yourself the freedom to change from year to year. It's okay if for several years you do the box curriculum and then you want to venture out a little bit. We have the freedom to do that. So are there any other things to consider as we're choosing our curriculum?
Well, one of the things you want to keep in mind is the age of your kids. Again, that the grade level age level approach. Some things, like if you're teaching a kindergarten, guess what you're going to have? You're going to have a lot of tear outs and a lot of coloring pages. So you're going to probably want to pick something that is maybe a printable that you can buy a digital version of it so you can, have it for your next kindergartner coming up. If your kids are all older, maybe the textbook is a good way to go with, then your student books replaced every year.
Right. I also
Um,
think with the age of your children, you also need to know, if you have younger kids and you have to give them a lot of your time and energy, it might not be wise to get a curriculum for your older kids that you also need to get a lot of your time and energy to. You need to kind of
exactly.
balance you might need some more independent style curriculums for your older kids if you still have, little nursing babies or toddlers around home.
Right.
So you've
Exactly.
got to look at the big picture of the ages of all your kids.
Yes, yes, absolutely. Some subjects you're going to be really familiar with. You're going to be really comfortable. So you don't really need a whole lot of support. You don't
Right.
need a whole lot of, a structure to help guide you through it. But if you're not familiar with it, you may want to stick with something that's pretty much an open and go for that
Right.
particular topic.
Okay.
Again, you got to consider your time to prep and actually teach the material, just like
Right.
Abby talked about. Sometimes you just don't have
Yeah.
time. And maybe in your perfect world, you would have all this time to do this eclectic homeschool. But the reality is, you need something your kids can do on their own.
Right, right. We're not buying curriculum to decorate our shelves. We're buying curriculum that's going
Exactly.
to work for our family.
And like we said, you're teaching your children's learning style, your teaching style, and then your organizational skills. I mean,
Mhm.
if you are kind of a disorganized personality, you might not do well with an eclectic format because you're going to be losing track of where you're at in your
Right.
subjects. But
Okay.
so
Okay. So once I know what I'm doing, where do I get this homeschool curriculum? Can I go down to my local Barnes and Noble, or I mean, what do I do? How do I actually purchase this stuff?
well, actually, you could go down to Barnes and Nobles for some of your stuff,
Okay.
depending on what approach you're choosing. But Barnes and Nobles, Amazon, you can find used curriculum on Facebook Marketplace,
Mhm.
eBay, resources like that. And I highly encourage you to buy used curriculum
Yes.
if you are just starting out and you don't know what. It's a good cost
Right.
savings, and it it makes it feel like if you try it and it doesn't work, you
Yeah.
haven't lost a ton of money in the
Right.
process. Facebook groups like the Homeschool Idaho has a marketplace component for homeschoolers to sell homeschool curriculum to
Right.
homeschoolers. Walmart. So talking about that kindergartner, do you have to go buy a really fancy, expensive curriculum to get them started?
No.
No, you can go down to Walmart and pick a kindergarten level book for
Right.
$8, and that gets them started. And it takes the pressure off of you. It gets you rolling. And if you only make it halfway through, no big deal. So don't get also caught up in, ooh, it's pretty and it's homeschool curriculum.
Right. Right.
There's all kinds of resources. And then look at the internet. I mean, Rainbow Resource is a great resource for multiple types
Yes.
of curriculum. Look to the publisher themselves. Most of them sell direct to teachers, to
Yep.
parents. There's Christian Book Distributors sells homeschool material. And a lot of times they'll have in July a big homeschool sale on their curriculum material. So
Right.
um, Homeschool Idaho in relationship to their convention every year has a big, huge homeschool used book sale.
Right.
And that's a great, for a first time homeschooler, it can feel overwhelming, but it's a great way at minimum to go down and put your hands on the curriculum itself.
Right. Right.
Even if you don't opt to buy anything, just to get yourself familiar with what it looks like in real life, there's
Right.
value in that. So
Yeah.
that's another
And in
resource.
addition to the used curriculum sale that Homeschool Idaho offers, at our actual convention, there is an exhibit hall. And that is where
Yes.
all of these publishers come and they actually bring it. Because sometimes when you're getting started, or even still myself, it's hard to see it online. It's hard to look at the pictures online. Like, I want to
Right.
see it and touch it and feel it. I want my kid to look at it. And
Right.
so at the convention in the exhibit hall, you have that. They often give discounts if you buy there. It also
Mm-hmm.
supports these vendors. It supports
Yes.
your state homeschool organization. It supports your freedoms, even with to be able to help fund these conventions. So
Yes.
I would say if you're not sure, one thing, this isn't what this is about, but go to a state homeschool convention. You get to talk direct to the publishers. Oftentimes the
Yes.
publishers are also speaking. So you get to get a feel for who they are, what they believe in, how they work. Touch the books, feel the books, talk to the people that made them,
Mm-hmm.
and then buy them on site and get a discount and support homeschool. So
Yeah.
I would say if you're not 100% sure, that's a really good place to start. Talk to other moms, see what works for them.
Especially other moms. Yeah.
Yeah, if you find a mom with a kid a little bit like yours or a mom a little bit like you, talk to them, find out what they did. Don't let that control you, because we can get into that. Well, they used it, I'll use
Right.
it. but it is a good conversation to have. So this is one of our longest sessions because there's a lot here, but it's also one of the most asked questions is, what do I use? How do I do it? So hopefully we've given you a lot of information on homeschool curriculum. Again, this is just information. Do what's best for your family. Don't let the curriculum run you. You let the curriculum be a tool for your family. Don't be afraid to switch. Don't become a slave to your curriculum. A curriculum is a resource to homeschool your children. We're homeschooling their heart. So keep that in mind. So thanks for joining us. We're going to be adding more sessions. We're going to be talking about organization, because now that you've got your curriculum, how do I organize this homeschool thing? We're going to be talking about homeschooling multiple grades, how that looks, homeschooling high school, and then go back and listen to the past sessions. So thanks for joining us, and make sure you check out the rest of our sessions on Homeschool Idaho's YouTube page and share these with friends. Thanks again, guys. We'll see you back here.